I want you to think about something for a moment. Think about how you walked 10 years ago, the confidence of each stride, the ease with which you stepped off a curb, turned a corner, or moved through a crowded room without a second thought about where your feet were landing. Now think about how you walk today, whether there is a hesitation that was not there before, whether your eyes scan the floor a little more carefully, whether certain situations, a wet surface, a dark hallway, an uneven path, produce a flicker of anxiety that they never used to. If that description resonates with you, I want you to understand something important before we go any further. What you are experiencing is not an irreversible consequence of aging. It is the predictable result of a balance system that has been under-challenged, and under-challenged systems in the human body do exactly what any biological system does when it stops receiving adequate stimulus. They downregulate. They become less responsive. They become less reliable. And the clinical consequence of an unreliable balance system in adults over 60 is serious. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related hospitalization in older adults, and the majority of those falls are not the result of sudden medical events. They are the result of a balance system that has been quietly deteriorating for years without anyone addressing it. I am Dr. James Mitchell, and today I want to do two things with you. First, I am going to give you two simple tests that will reveal your actual functional balance age, not your chronological age, but the age your stability system is currently operating at. These tests take less than 2 minutes, and they will show you with clinical honesty where your baseline is. Then I am going to walk you through 5 exercises that systematically reactivate the muscles and neural pathways that your balance system depends on. Muscles that for many of you have been functionally dormant for years without your awareness. Before we begin the tests, I need to address safety directly and without compromise. Even if you feel entirely confident in your balance right now, I want you to position yourself in a corner of the room where 2 walls are within arm's reach, or place yourself between a wall on one side and a sturdy chair on the other. Your perception of your own stability is not always an accurate reflection of your actual stability, and that discrepancy is precisely what these tests are designed to reveal. If you experience dizziness at any point during either test, stop immediately and make contact with your support surface. There is nothing to prove here. The information these tests provide is only useful if you are safe while obtaining it. The first test is called the tandem stance. This test evaluates how effectively your brain manages postural stability when the base of support beneath you is reduced to its narrowest possible configuration. Place one foot directly in front of the other so that the heel of your front foot is touching the toes of your back foot, as though you are standing on a single line drawn across the floor. Allow your arms to extend slightly away from your sides. Find a fixed point on the wall in front of you at eye level and direct your gaze there. Do not look down at your feet, and do not allow your head to turn. Now hold that position for 30 seconds. As you hold, you will likely feel small movements in your feet and ankles, subtle shifts from side to side as your postural control system makes continuous micro-corrections to keep you upright. This is not instability. This is your balance system working correctly. The sensory receptors in your feet and ankles are sending real-time positional information to your cerebellum, which is processing that information and generating corrective motor commands faster than conscious thought. What you are feeling is that process in action. If you completed the full 30 seconds, your tandem stance is intact, and you are ready for the second test. If you were able to hold for less than 10 seconds, I want you to skip the second test for now and move directly to the exercises. The second test places greater demand on the system, and attempting it prematurely is not clinically useful. The second test is the single leg stance. This is the test that has received perhaps the most attention in longevity research over the past decade, and for good reason. Stand beside a wall or within reach of a chair. Allow your arms to rest at your sides, but keep them available to make contact with support immediately if needed. Lift one foot off the floor, bending the knee to a comfortable angle. You do not need significant height. What matters is that your full body weight is transferred to the standing limb. Hold that position for as long as you can maintain it without touching the raised foot to the floor or making contact with any support surface. Note the time when your foot touches down. Here is how to interpret your result against age-matched clinical standards. If you are between 50 and 59, the target is 30 seconds or more. Between 60 and 69, 20 to 25 seconds represents good functional balance for your age group. Between 70 and 79, 15 seconds is a strong result. And for adults, 80 and above, 5 to 8 seconds of controlled single-leg stance is genuinely excellent and reflects well-maintained stability for that demographic. Take a moment to note your result honestly. This is your baseline, and it is the number you will be improving over the coming weeks with the exercises I am about to give you. Now let us move to the 5 exercises. I want to be clear that these 5 movements are not interchangeable, and they are not optional in terms of sequence. Each one targets a different component of the balance system, and they build upon one another. Omitting any of them leaves a gap in your rehabilitation that the others cannot compensate for. The first exercise is the controlled single-leg stand. This is the therapeutic version of the second test you just performed, and the distinction between testing and training is important. In the test, you held until failure. In the exercise, you work within a controlled and progressive range with deliberate attention to the quality of each repetition. Stand behind a sturdy, high-backed chair with both hands available on the back of it. Feet hip-width apart, spine long, shoulder blades gently set, core lightly engaged. Think of the abdominal muscles as a natural support system for the lumbar spine rather than something you are forcefully contracting. As you exhale, slowly lift your right knee until the thigh approaches parallel with the floor, allowing the lower leg to hang naturally. Hold that position. Then as you inhale, lower the leg with deliberate resistance against gravity. The foot should return to the floor quietly and with control. Not dropped, not slapped down, but placed. There are 2 technical errors that undermine this exercise consistently. The first is tempo. This is a balance and neuromuscular control exercise, not a strength exercise driven by momentum. Every phase of the movement should be slow enough that the postural system is continuously challenged to maintain stability. The second is hip displacement. Your pelvis should remain level and stable throughout. The moment the hip on the standing side drops, or the hip on the lifting side rises, the gluteus medius has disengaged and the exercise is no longer producing its intended effect. Imagine a vertical line running through the crown of your head, through your spine, to the floor. That line should remain unbroken throughout every repetition. 10 repetitions on each leg. Never push through pain. If any phase of this movement produces sharp discomfort, stop and consult your physician before continuing. The second exercise is the lateral leg raise, and this movement targets a muscle that is directly responsible for one of the most common mechanisms of falls in older adults. The gluteus medius stabilizes the pelvis during the single leg stance phase of every step you take. When it weakens, the pelvis drops on the unsupported side with each stride, creating the lateral instability that causes people to trip over their own feet or lose balance when stepping off a curb. Strengthening the gluteus medius is not simply about hip strength. It is about the integrity of every step you take. Stand sideways to your chair or wall with one hand on the support. Spine vertical, gaze forward at a fixed point rather than downward at your feet. Slowly raise the outer leg directly to the side, keeping the knee straight and the toes pointing forward rather than rotating upward. Lift to a comfortable height, pause for 1 second at the top to allow the gluteus medius to sustain its contraction, then return the leg to the floor slowly. The foot barely touches the floor before the next repetition begins. 4 technical errors to avoid. Moving too quickly, which transfers the work from the muscle to momentum. Lifting too high, which causes the pelvis to tilt and shifts the load from the gluteus medius to the lumbar extensors. Leaning the trunk away from the working leg, which is a compensation pattern that reduces gluteal activation, and allowing the knee to bend during the lift, which changes the mechanics of the movement entirely. 10 repetitions on each side. Turn to face the opposite direction to work the other leg so that the support hand remains consistent. The third exercise is the heel-to-toe rock. I want to explain why this movement deserves its own dedicated place in a balance protocol rather than being treated as a simple warm-up, because its benefits extend well beyond what is apparent from watching it performed. Stand facing the back of a chair with both hands resting lightly on it, feet approximately hip-width apart, knees soft rather than locked. Slowly rise onto the balls of your feet, elevating the heels as high as is comfortably achievable. Hold briefly at the top, then lower through the full foot and continue the motion backward, lifting the toes off the floor so that you are momentarily balancing on your heels. Then reverse direction again, rolling forward onto the balls of the feet. The motion is smooth, continuous, and fully controlled in both directions. The calf musculature activated during the toe rise phase is, as I have described in other contexts, the primary pump-driving venous return from the lower extremities. Every contraction of the gastrocnemius and soleus drives blood upward through the deep venous system against gravity. But in the context of balance, the continuous rolling motion also delivers repeated sensory stimulation to the mechanoreceptors in the soles of the feet, the tiny sensory organs responsible for detecting ground contact and transmitting that information to the postural control centers of the brain. More frequent and more varied sensory input from the feet produces a more accurate and more responsive postural control system. 4 errors to avoid: moving too quickly and relying on momentum rather than muscular control, swinging the trunk to assist the rise, which unloads the calves, allowing the hips to shift backward excessively during the heel phase, which strains the lumbar spine, and rounding the upper back during the toe phase, which disrupts the postural alignment the exercise is designed to reinforce. The 4th exercise is the coordination cross step. This movement is the most cognitively demanding exercise in the protocol, and that cognitive demand is precisely the point. Falls in daily life rarely happen during straightforward forward walking on flat, familiar surfaces. They happen during transitions, turning in a narrow kitchen, pivoting in a hallway, crossing one foot in front of the other to navigate around an obstacle. These situations require the brain to simultaneously track the position of both feet, maintain postural stability on a shifting base of support, and execute a movement pattern that differs from the standard alternating gait cycle. This exercise trains exactly that capacity. I recommend performing this one in a corner for maximum safety, with a chair positioned in front of you so that support is accessible on multiple sides. Your weight will remain primarily on one standing leg throughout each set. With the opposite foot, you will touch the floor at 3 sequential points, directly in front of the standing foot, directly to the side, and then across the front of the standing leg to the opposite side. That final crossover movement, bringing one foot across the midline in front of the other, is the pattern that prevents the foot crossing trips that cause falls during turning and pivoting in confined spaces. 8 to 10 repetitions on each leg. The pace should be deliberate and controlled, with your attention focused on the accuracy of each foot placement rather than the speed of the sequence. What you are training here is not foot speed. You are training the proprioceptive awareness that tells your brain where your feet are in space when they are in positions outside the standard gait pattern. That awareness is what catches you when you stumble, rather than letting the stumble become a fall. The 5th exercise is the lateral weight shift, sometimes called the rocking boat. This final movement is deceptively powerful because it trains the vestibular system, the balance hardware located in the inner ear that detects the body's orientation in space and coordinates with the visual system and the proprioceptive system to produce integrated postural stability. When all 3 of these systems are working together effectively, balance is reliable. When any one of them is compromised or when the brain has lost the ability to integrate their signals efficiently, instability results. Stand with your feet positioned significantly wider than shoulder width, giving yourself a broad and stable base. Knees soft, arms hanging relaxed at your sides. Begin shifting your weight slowly and smoothly from your right foot to your left foot, and back again. This is not a side-to-side lean of the trunk. It is a pure weight transfer through the lower body, with the feet remaining planted throughout. The motion should feel like a slow, smooth pendulum. Right, pause, left, pause. Begin with your eyes open and a fixed gaze point straight ahead. Once the movement feels stable and controlled, if you are standing freely rather than holding the chair, gently close your eyes. The moment your visual input is removed, you will notice an immediate increase in the perceived challenge of the movement. This is normal and expected. What is happening is that your brain has lost one of its three primary balance inputs and must now rely more heavily on the vestibular and proprioceptive systems to maintain stability. This increased reliance is exactly the training stimulus that improves the function of those systems over time. If dizziness occurs at any point with eyes closed, open your eyes immediately. Do not attempt to push through dizziness in a balance exercise. Dizziness indicates that the vestibular system is being challenged beyond its current capacity, and exceeding that capacity does not accelerate adaptation. It creates a fall risk. Begin with 30 to 40 seconds of the eyes closed version and build progressively toward 1 minute over the coming weeks as your vestibular system adapts and the dizziness threshold increases. Let me close with the clinical context that I think makes everything we have done today meaningful rather than simply mechanical. The two tests you performed at the beginning of this session gave you an honest measurement of where your balance system is currently operating. The 5 exercises you have just learned address the 5 primary components that determine where that measurement will be in 4 weeks, in 8 weeks, and in 6 months if you apply them consistently. The controlled single leg stand rebuilds the neuromuscular connection between your brain and the postural muscles of the hip and lower extremity. The lateral leg raise specifically rehabilitates the gluteus medius that stabilizes your pelvis with every step. The heel-to-toe rock restores the sensory richness of ground contact information flowing from your feet to your postural control centers. The coordination cross-step trains the movement patterns that prevent falls during the real-world situations where falls most commonly occur. And the lateral weight shift with eyes closed directly challenges and progressively improves the vestibular integration that underlies all other balance functions. 15 minutes daily. That is the investment. And the return on that investment is not abstract. It is the confidence to walk down a flight of stairs without gripping the railing. It is the ability to move through a crowded grocery store without anxiety about losing your footing. It is the freedom to participate in the physical activities of daily life without the background awareness that the floor is a threat. That freedom is not gone. It is recoverable. And the recovery begins with the decision to practice these movements every single day until the nervous system has rebuilt what years of under-challenge allowed to fade. Here is my challenge to you. Perform all 5 exercises today in the sequence I have described. Then tomorrow and every day for the next 4 weeks. At the end of those 4 weeks, repeat the 2 tests from the beginning of this video and compare your result to the baseline you established today. Then come back here and leave me a comment. Tell me your age, where you are watching from, how many seconds you held in the single leg stance at the start, and how many seconds you held at the 4-week mark. Your progress is not just personally meaningful. It is clinically important evidence for every other person in this community who is sitting at a baseline they believe cannot improve. Show them that it can. If this video has given you something valuable today, please share it with someone you care about and subscribe to this channel for weekly medically grounded guidance made specifically for adults over 60. Your balance is a skill. Skills respond to practice. Start practicing today. I will see you in the next one.